Greetings folks, Simon here, welcome back to the channel. Now, something we're going to be looking at today, it has been known for a while in fact, but we haven't really spoken about it much on the channel, is the fact that Square are going to be introducing a classic combat mode in with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And there's an interview that's been posted here with Yoshinori Kitase on the official Final Fantasy VII Twitter feed, which we're going to take a look at, and I will leave a link to down in the video description. So, obviously the original Final Fantasy VII used really a turn-based battle mode, although it was known as the ATB system, the active turn-based system, and that's because we had those ATB bars which were independent of one another, so it wasn't strictly turn-based in that sense, but you still had to wait for those bars to fill up before you could make your moves, and enemies had those as well, even though for enemies the bars were hidden from players. But anyway, obviously because Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be far more action-oriented over the original game, because that's pretty much what we expected the whole time anyway, based on Final Fantasy 15 and just the general direction as to where Final Fantasy has gone over the last few years. Obviously a lot of fans were not exactly thrilled about that, going from the original Final Fantasy 7 to a more action oriented version of the game. So Square have gone ahead and implemented this classic combat mode, which really draws inspiration from the original system. So let's go ahead and watch the video here, see what Kitase-san has to say, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. But as I said, I'll also leave a link to this down in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. It's only 50 seconds long, and I'll just read the subtitles out as well, since some of you are probably watching on phones where it's a little bit harder to read or whatever, and then we'll talk about it. So he says, when we showed Final Fantasy VII Remake at E3 in June, there were a lot of people online, players who do not get on so well with action games, who were very worried at the greater action focus than in the original game. And Classic Mode was created to assuage those players' worries. Practically speaking, it automates all of the action elements in Final Fantasy VII Remake, such as Cloud's movement and standard attacks. So the player only needs to select ATB commands like magic. It is a mode that players of the original will enjoy very much. Then that's the end. Yeah, that's it. So the way the standard battle mode is going to work is that you select every command. So whichever party member you're controlling, you will select their light attacks, their strong attacks, and then as the ATB gauge begins to fill, you'll begin to select magic attacks, call summons, whatever the case may be. Now, it's worth noting that your other two party members that are in the battle with you, they will be controlled by the AI, but you can switch between them whenever you want, even in the middle of combat. So if you're playing as Cloud, you're selecting all his abilities, then let's say that Barrett and Tifa are in the party, the AI will control them and select their abilities, but as far as I'm aware, it won't select their ATB abilities. I could be wrong on that, maybe somebody could correct me if I am, but you will need to switch over to those party members if you want to use their special attacks. However, what the classic mode is going to do is make sure that the party member, even the active party member that you're controlling, is attacking all the time. Anyway, that's going to be an automatic process. So the filling up of the ATB gauge is going to be something that the computer is going to take control of. And then what the player is going to do is concentrate on using those ATB gauges, those field gauges, in order to select special abilities, magics, calling summons, whatever the case may be. In other words, it's going to harken back a lot more to the original Final Fantasy VII. Now, of course, in the original Final Fantasy VII, when ATB gauges are filling, the party members are not actually attacking, they're just standing there, which kind of feels a little bit strange anyway, doesn't it, if you think about it, because they're just standing there in battle not doing anything. And if you've got a slow gauge filling up, it can kind of seem a little bit unnatural. So maybe it would have been nice, even in the original game, during that period, if they were still attacking enemies, even if that was doing no damage and it was just a cosmetic thing. That is going to be the main difference here with the classic mode in the remake, is that effectively while the ATB gauge is filling and you can't control that party member, they are still going to be unleashing basic attacks. Then of course, when the ATB gauge is filled, wait mode will commence as you start to select various abilities. In other words, it's just going to feel a whole lot more like combat felt in the original game, and I'm all for it. I'm very much excited to get my hands on with classic mode. I will of course try the standard battle mode as well, and I'll have a feel as to which I prefer going forward, but I'm very excited that Square are introducing this feature. I know a lot of people have criticised it and are just calling it an easy mode, but we don't even know if that's going to be the case yet. Okay, so it's taking out the fact that we're not going to be selecting standard attacks, but I still think, We are going to be doing the bulk of the strategy and stuff, which is selecting when we do our special abilities and what have you. What's interesting to me is that Katazi here says that this is some kind of response to the E3 demo. He says that at the E3 demo, fans were worried about the action focus. Which is true, there was a response to that from fans of the original game, and then he says, and then Classic Mode was created to assuage those players' worries. So it makes me think that they weren't expecting there was going to be some kind of feedback from fans on the action orientation of Final Fantasy VII Remake. This sounds like a very reactive response to the E3 demo, which is kind of surprising to me. I mean, I'm glad that Square have responded. I'm not criticising that at all. It just seems a little strange that they wouldn't have been expecting that even before the E3 demo, that kind of response from fans. But I can absolutely see the need to have action combat in Final Fantasy VII. It's not the choice I would have made if it was a game that was being made for me personally, but of course it isn't. It's got to appease a lot of people, fans of the original, newcomers to the game. It's an expensive game, no doubt. They need to make their money back. I do understand some of the choices they're making, even if they're not, as a Final Fantasy VII fan, you know, the choices that I would have absolutely loved to have seen. That said, the fact that they're adding this classic mode, I think is a good thing, obviously, because at least it gives us that option as to which way we want to go. But I know that not everybody's on board with it. They just see it as an easy mode. But I, as always, appreciate your thoughts down in the comments. And are you going to be playing, do you think, in the original battle mode, as in like the Final Fantasy VII Remake's original battle mode, which is the action mode? Or will you be using the classic mode more as you go through the game? Yeah, do share your thoughts on that down in the comment section, and I'll see you for more Final Fantasy VII Remake news and updates in the near future. Goodbye.